first met John on a project sponsored by EMH, the BAME ad agency, on knife crime in East London. So when you look at John and you hear the words knife crime in East London, I'd just like you to check in with what you're thinking. That's all. That's all. Interview over. No, I'm kidding. However, I was not interviewing you, was I? Because you were involved in knife crime.
No.
No. So tell us a little bit, Jonathan, about your childhood and your growing up.
So I grew up in a family of four, mum, dad, brother, myself. I had a really good childhood. You know, my parents worked really hard to give us everything we wanted, and I had lots of friends. So growing up, yeah, I had a really, really great childhood.
And where was that childhood?
In Chingford, East London.
Chingford. Essex people, yes, there's one right there. Okay. So as you were growing up, what were your family's expectations of you? So what did, in particular your mum, I know she's a strong character.
Yeah.
What did, just go from that. What did your family expect?
My dad wanted for me to be a pilot, which was really confusing. It's just something he wanted to do, I think, and he kind of wanted to trickle down onto me. But I think by the age of 6 or 7, I made it very clear to him that that wasn't going to happen. So they wanted me to go to university, and you know, like all parents would. And I think it was a bit of a shock to them when I told them after I finished my studies that I didn't feel like that was the path for me.
At what age do you remember realizing that your parents had expectations that you were supposed to fulfill?
Around 17, when I was getting closer to the age of going to university and it's time to think more seriously about the future, that the conversation started to come up more frequently. And yeah, for me, that was the realization. I was like, okay, well, I think there's a certain route that I'm expected to go down here that I don't necessarily agree with.
I think for many of us will relate to our parents having expectations, or the world in general having expectations. What do you think, well, how did you know you didn't want to go to university? What was it about university that you didn't want?
For me, it was just me kind of being more responsible for myself and making, taking risks and saying this is the route I want to go down instead.
I've heard this from you before, and I love this contradiction between I'm going to take responsibility for myself by taking a risk. And I think for me, this is the big learning that I've had from John over the years, that, the year that I've known you, the whole thing about you took responsibility for yourself at a very early age, and yet it could be seen as a risk rather than responsibility. So what was the family reaction?
They thought that, I didn't really know what I was talking about, and they didn't trust my opinion at first, which to me was a bit demoralizing. I thought, I wanted them to trust me to make decisions. And it didn't go down well so good at first, but afterwards it was just a matter of, I just thought to myself, rather than just keep trying to explain how this is a good idea, why don't I just show them and get on with it?
You said that you grew up in this very caring family, that they wanted everything for you, and it seems like a bit of a contradiction, doesn't it? That, you know that they care, but they don't want you to do what you want to do. Yeah,
that goes down a lot deeper, just because, my nan also went to university, and a lot of my cousins went to university just because that was what everyone else did. And I feel like that's a part of that was maybe my mum thinking, okay, she doesn't want me to kind of stick out and think, oh, well, everyone else did and he didn't. Which I did consider. I didn't want to, upset her too much, but at the same time, I can't, do things off the bat of what other people think I should do.
This point about your mother didn't want you to be different, she didn't want you to stand out. Were there other examples in life where your mum was like, Don't be different, don't be loud, don't be whatever.
In the supermarket, maybe. So, to hate myself. But no, I think that's probably the biggest example of just her wanting me to just kind of follow a similar pattern that everyone else did, especially because my brother went to university as well, so it was even closer family and
more pressure.
More pressure.
So, you probably heard my opening thing about excellent sheep. She really wanted you to be the excellent sheep, didn't she?
Yeah.
And instead you're being the excellent centaur or some other mythical creature. Yeah. So what happened? How did you get out of going to university? What did you find out and how did you go about life?
The summer of me being 18, I'd done a lot of research and I come across apprenticeships. So I looked into it and I thought this is really good because I'm getting a chance to further my education, my studies, and at the same time I get some experience which sounded ideal and perfect to me. I thought to myself, that sounds more like something that I want to do. So I applied for an agency just before I went on holiday, and then I went for a trial day at my first company 2 days before I went on holiday. So I went for that, and then they told me that they would just get back to me. So then I went on holiday, and I told myself that I'm not going to think about it until I'm back. But then, luckily for me, I was just relaxing with my friends, and then I got a call while I was on holiday saying that they wanted to take me on, which is really good, and it just made me have an even better holiday because I was just relaxed from then on out. And then, so that's how I got out of that.
I think when most of us think about apprenticeships, we tend to think about the craft and trade. We tend to think about carpentry and being an electrician and so on. So I don't know how many of you in the audience, I certainly didn't know that you could do an apprenticeship in whatever it is you do. We don't know what they do we? I can take the piss because it's my brother's company that he works for. So how did you know what you wanted to do? Because as you said, if you'd gone to university, you wouldn't have known about the business world. What was it about the business world, the media world that you wanted?
To be fair, when I made that decision, I wasn't. It doesn't mean that I had it all figured out. Then I didn't. It just come off the bat there. I knew that I was pretty good with computers generally. I'd always done really well, and I thought, okay, let me just take down this route of ICT, which is a really broad subject, and I broke it down to digital marketing. So that was kind of how I broke down how I wanted to study what I went on to study.
You see, I don't think you're very average, because I don't think many people go into things in this depth. So how did you know what to look for, even?
It was just the pressure of, I've put this idea out there, no one's really agreed or supported it, so now I have to make sure that it's a good idea and I really know exactly what I'm doing. So I just went through the extra length of really researching, seeing, what I want now, what I want in the future, and then weighing up the options and going from there.
So I'm hearing that the fact that no one was supporting your decision actually made you even more determined, and it drove you to really finding out about what you wanted to do. Wow, okay. Because we're hearing a lot of stories today about people who are supported, but this is one about someone who really had to plough his own furrow. Can you tell us a bit about the best and worst times? So when has this been really hard, and when have you gone, yes, I've done the right thing?
So my worst time didn't come too long after I started, actually, because I was just a young 18-year-old boy ready to learn with very little experience, and my employer at the time expected me to be very much the finished product, which I wasn't. And the way that the feedback was given back to me at the time was a bit I would say too much for an 18-year-old to take. It was really, again, I use the word demoralizing. And then when I got let go from that job, it kind of made me feel like, okay, have I just proved the point here? And I don't know what I'm talking about here. And, so that was really probably the worst and most difficult time for me. But it's funny because then my mum saw how difficult it was for me, and then she actually began to support it, and she was like, just stick at it, and I'm sure you'll be fine. And I mean, from that, it taught me a lesson because it made me think, okay, well, if he doesn't think that I'm good at what I do, then I'm probably not good at what I do. But I thought, actually, no, like I am. I just need the time and support and the guidance, which I didn't get. But, eventually I kind of learned to believe in myself, trust myself, because for me, I knew exactly what I wanted from the beginning, and I stuck at it. And luckily for me now, I'm somewhere where I do get support and get pushed. So it's great. It's really good.
So I find that quite upsetting that the feedback you were getting in your first job was not feedback for an 18-year-old apprentice. It was feedback. Their expectations were way beyond what you could possibly offer, and it just wasn't helpful, right? What's the best feedback you ever got?
Along my whole journey?
Yeah, like what's the most useful feedback?
Most useful feedback I got was probably definitely to be myself, because me being myself, it allowed me to understand how I can work best and how I can progress myself and how I can help others to help me progress. And if I just try to, like you said, be really good at being someone else, then I'm not gonna help myself progress at all.
What is next in plan, Jonathan Barros? What's the dream?
For me, what's next is to just keep developing, keep progressing and doing as well as I can. I feel like I'm now in a position and at a company where I do have the guidance and the support for me to do well. And obviously I went on to achieve a lot of good things this summer, which I'm immensely proud of. For example, getting a distinction for my apprenticeship. That was a really proud moment for me, because I was trying to balance a lot at the same time. I was trying to grasp a new sector, a new business, at the same time of making sure that I complete my apprenticeship. And I had some complications along the way, and I had some extra work to do, which meant that I may have not got the grade that I wanted. And I just said, no, there's no way. I've worked too hard to just get a pass, and I made sure that I ensured that I got what I felt I deserved.
We were all crying when he got his distinction in his apprenticeship. We're like, yes, he did it. What did you have to do? Because, as you said, you had a lot going on work-wise, a lot of other claims on your time. In order to get that distinction, what discipline did you impose upon yourself?
Apply yourself 100% into everything. Even when, sometimes I found myself doing, making sure that I'm, sending off all my coursework, even if it's like 12 a.m., but I knew that it's what I needed to do. I just have that mentality in me. And in terms of balancing work, I was really interested in, I like what I do. So it was just the natural curiosity just allowed me to continue to do as well as I can work-wise, and then apply myself with my apprenticeship, and then merge the two together and just try to do as well as I can.
You are at an age, I don't know if you know this, when you're supposed to be partying like hell.
Yeah.
When do you have fun, or is that not for broadcast?
In the lead up to me completing my apprenticeship, there wasn't a lot of that, and I had to understand that. You just have to understand you're going to have to just work hard, and then once the hard work's over, then you can you do the partying and enjoy yourself, which I do. On the weekend I still see my friends, but yeah, I think you just have to understand the situation and not run from it. You know the task that's ahead of you. Just get on with it. And
well, your work ethic is admirable. most people in their university years, university is basically 4 years of partying, as far as I remember and as far as I can work out. Do you have any regrets about not going to university when you speak to your friends who did?
Maybe, because when you go to university, you kind of, in terms of like social life, it kind of helps you to, communication-wise, helps you socially. So in terms of that, and obviously with my past experiences, obviously, community, it was hard to kind of get over what had happened and get back to being myself in terms of like, just how sociable I am, because I kind of, it affected me a little bit. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, I can understand it maybe socially, but I don't have any regrets at all. I think I definitely made the right decision. I'm 100% happy with the choice I made, and I'm going to keep working with myself to make sure I overcome everything I need to overcome.
You do look a bit happy. You definitely do. So this lot in the audience, mainly a bit older than you. What do you want them to change to make the journey that you had easier? So what can they do so that nobody else has to fight for their right not to go to university?
I'm sure everyone else is doing what they can anyway, but I would just say for anyone in a situation similar to mine, support just goes a long way. If you're going to give criticism, make sure it's constructive. But yeah, that's what I would say. As long as if you have someone there that believes in what you're doing and is at least supporting you, then that goes a long way. So it goes a long way.
Well, thank you for your wisdom, young man.